Our next guest is a solid gold cyclist who's so iconic that, true story, I named my pet rabbit after him when I was 12. He's telling his story in his new book, The Chain, which is out now. So put your hands together and go totally madly for Sir Bradley Wiggins!
For Sir Bradley Wiggins, come on now! Sir Bradley Wiggins, how are you, mate?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me on.
You're very welcome. First of all, I've got to make amends. I've got to make amends for giving out to you live on the air all those years ago when you didn't turn up to the show because you were in hospital with a broken rib.
I was, yes. I'd been knocked off my bike, I think, the night before I was due to come on with you.
Right.
So unfortunately I couldn't make it. But that wasn't that well publicised at the time, so it's not your fault.
Well, I'm making amends now.
Yeah.
Geez, you're in hospital with a broken rib because you got knocked off your bike.
I did, yeah, outside a petrol station in Lancashire.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were on to talk about a book back then.
I was.
And I was so excited about you coming in. I mean, that was the thing. I was so excited about you coming in because, like, we all love you. We all loved you. We all love you. You were so exciting at the time. You're still exciting now. And I'd read your book. And back in the day, I didn't always read all the books.
I heard you read all the books that you're given.
I do now.
Yes.
But I didn't then. And I read yours. And I was like, and also the whole show is like, Bradley Wiggins coming into, and the whole show's about you, and then you were coming. It's like, oh no, what are we going to do? I think we just played loads of records, but anyway. So that was that book, and this is this book. Different book altogether. Same subject, different perspective.
Yeah, this is a life story as opposed to a sports story.
Right.
A lot's happened since then.
Yeah.
A lot happened before then.
Yeah.
But I'm a lot more aware of the things that happened before then, and have had time and perspective to understand how the things that happened in my life, in childhood and things like that, I suppose in a way made me great on a bike.
Yeah.
Because I do think that there's, with any sort of level of greatness, if you like, or ability, that it comes from some sort of adversity somewhere.
Yeah.
And particularly with a sport like cycling, where you spend hours on your own on a bike, suffering, racing and suffering and training. And, there's an element of sort of self-harm in that.
Yeah.
And the psychological kind of intensity and the pushing the physical side of things. And yeah, it's funny because when cycling went, I had to sort of start, I didn't know at the time I had to start addressing these demons. I fell into, 3 years into retirement, I was a drug addict and spent the next 5 years kind of dealing with that and thinking I'd never get out the other side of it. And lots of things cropped up while doing that and using that clearly were an issue and holding me back in life.
So you started to reverse engineer what had gone on.
Yeah. And accept things that I'd buried for 30 years that had happened to me, particularly the sexual abuse.
Yeah.
I think that was probably one of the biggest things. The onset grief, my dad being murdered in 2008, and throwing myself into the world of cycling at that time. It was an Olympic year. And never really dealing with those things and brushing them off. I suppose when you're an elite athlete as well, you brush a lot of things off that happen in life, funerals, anything that happens that most people will get time off work to deal with. I think I thrust myself into the world of cycling as a distraction.
And now you're clean and sober.
Yes.
And yeah, at the end of the book it says for 6 months, but that's because that was a year ago.
Yeah, I started writing in January.
Right, and so it's 18 months.
Pretty much, close on.
All right, and what was the event that triggered that?
Probably going bankrupt last June, although I knew it was happening April, May time of 2024, because I had no option at that point other than to pick myself up and try and come back, rather than continue to spiral. And I think once that event happened, which had been looming for a long time, I saw it as a challenge, I saw it as a challenge to come back, pick myself up and start again. But aside from that, I was getting sick of being the person I was. There was a lot of self-hatred involved, a lot of shame. My children were very aware of it. They were very supportive and parenting me at that time. And I felt I owed it to a lot of people, but I was also getting sick of the life I was living.
Right. And was there an accident as well didn't?
Yeah, my son had a car crash, but that was at the end of 2023, and
right.
I was that was a wake-up call in many ways, because obviously things like that happen, add to the self-hatred. Well, I'm high and need to get to a hospital and things like that.
Was that your bottom or?
I mean, there was a lot of bottoms,
right.
A lot of darkness, and just stuck in a rut in many ways. Yeah.
So what was the first sort of tangible rung on the ladder of recovery?
So I went bankrupt in June of 2024. I had no work on the horizon. I had no thoughts about getting back into cycling. I had no options to get back into cycling. There was no one opened any doors for me. I hated the sport that I'd done for so long. I turned my back on it. I blamed cycling for everything that had happened to me in my personal life. And I was kind of just sort of wallowing in self-pity. And Lance Armstrong contacted me from America. We'd kept in contact for many years, checked in on each other, and said, why don't you come out to Aspen this July, which is where he records his Tour de France show, and said, come on the show for a week, get out here, look, stay with me, and we can go riding if you want. I didn't have a bike at that time, so we didn't. We went in the gym instead. And I kind of got a new sense of hope from that there was a future and people cared. And I felt like I owed it to him as well at that time. And he said, we're in this together. We will get through this together. Wow. Yeah.
And because of the super honesty in the book, there is light in the book, and it's ever lighter now because of the context of the darkness. And all the way through the book, I was like, there was sort of there was evidence of manifestation, positive manifestation.
Yeah. I mean, there always has been, I suppose. Whatever the event is, whether it's cycling or life in general, or being a parent. But yeah, there was definitely. Yeah.
I was thinking specifically about when your mum took you to see the Tour de France in '93.
Yeah. I mean, the Eurostar had just opened, so we hopped on that to France. I watched the last day of the Tour de France in 1993 in Paris, stood on a wall on the entrance to the Place de la Concorde, which is the last road they go on to before they hit the Champs-Elysees. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. Now, at that time, I remember watching it and thinking, God, this is amazing. This is what cycling is. This is a national sport here. And I've got to go back to London where cycling is frowned upon. And I'm trying to get out of a council estate wearing Lycra, in 1992. And, but, I think I was very insecure. When I look back now, I was a very insecure kid, very traumatized, and self-worth issues that sort of came, showed themselves into adulthood, particularly when I'd stopped cycling, because my whole identity was wrapped up in SIR Wiggo. All my confidence came from being a cyclist and winning medals and winning Tour de France's, which is why I adopted that veil of this sort of mod rock star with a fancy haircut. It was because to mask my insecurities.
You look cool as well.
Yeah, but I mean that was part of it, Chris, was adopting a veil that I perceived as cool that aligned with my musical interests.
Yeah.
And so I that was a way of getting through being in the public eye.
Yeah, and it worked.
It did, but it also created a perception that wasn't really me, and disguised Bradley underneath the kid who was carrying all this shame from what a 72-year-old man had done to me from 13 years of age to the age of 16.
Yeah, and you I suppose it got you further away from who you were.
Well, that worked.
Yeah.
It worked,
Yeah.
And it also prevented me from ever working on that 13-year-old boy who was stuck in a 35-year-old man's body.
Yeah.
Emotionally, with those scars, and I suppose in the last 18 months, it's what I've endeavoured to do in writing this book as well, because it's been quite cathartic. It's been like a contract to myself, writing these events down with a clear mind, I have to say as well. Starting therapy early this year, going to CA meetings, going to AA meetings. I'm off to America next week to do a 4-day intensive counselling, trauma-based one-on-one intense course. So it's, and those things I'd always avoided. I thought, I don't need to go to an AA meeting, I don't need to go to a CA meeting, and just being with like-minded people, people that share, and it's been really, really
freeing.
Yeah. Yeah,
you
many
talk
ways.
about that, don't you? You feel free.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
And as well as the serial sexual abuse, there was the chaotic parenting situation, especially on the male side.
Yeah.
Then there was the false accusations of doping.
Yeah.
And then there was the drug and alcohol addiction. They're sort of the four main tenets of the book.
Yeah, and one informed. There was like a domino effect.
Yeah.
And really, the absence of a father through childhood, not just the absence of a father, but an absence of someone who became my hero. and someone that I only knew about in being told about and seeing pictures of, and then going to bike races as a 13-year-old, and everyone knowing who he was and saying, "You're going to be as good as your dad was."
Yeah.
And I was just
all the time. Didn't
yeah,
you?
it was a constant, and so wanting to, grow up to emulate him.
Yeah.
And stand on his shoulders. He was my hero. And then, of course, I met him when I was 19 for the first time, and didn't like the person that was in front of me. And they say don't meet your heroes, but this person was my dad as well. And so it was, and then his life was completely out of control at that time in his life. And he's watching a son that was beginning on a pathway to surpass him in many ways. He lived to watch me win my first Olympic title in Athens, but tragically lost his life in suspicious circumstances and was found in a ditch in 2008.
As I say, there are heroes in the book. Your dad was your hero, but there were
Still
real
is.
Still is.
Yeah.
There are real life heroes in there. As far as how they looked after you, your nan and your granddad.
Yeah.
Tell us about your nan and your granddad.
Well, I mean, they still live in Kilburn. Well, my nan does. My grandfather died in 2010. But they were, I spent lots of time with them as a child, holidays with them, every hour I could spend at their house, and my granddad was an electrician by trade. He worked for the London Electricity Board, and he was, watching someone get up, go to work with their tool bag every day. It gave me a great education as to what hard work is and graft. And he would always say to me, just little things. You put a suit on, you can cross any sort of cross section of society. You can cross the class system. And he taught me to walk straight. He took me to Wimbledon dog track on a Saturday night to watch greyhound racing.
That,
yeah, no,
and
it was
Wembley
great.
As well?
It was great, and he put it's in the book, but he went to Ladbrokes in Kilburn when I was 12 and placed a bet on me to win the Tour de France within 20 years.
So good.
And I, of course, won it on the 20th year of that bet. He died in 2010. No one knows where the betting slip is.
I know, it's all in there, isn't it? That's a lovely story about your nan and granddad. And it's right up there with them waiting around the corner for you from Buckingham Palace.
Yeah, so in 2004, when I won my first Olympic gold medal, Princess Anne, of course, who is well connected with the British Olympic Association, ex-Olympian herself, held a dinner with the main sponsors of the British Olympic Association in Buckingham Palace. So there was about 10 of us there, a couple of the other Olympic gold medalists, the head honchos from Adidas and various other big corporate sponsors of the BOA at that time. And it rolled out about 10 o'clock and I came out the front gates of Buckingham Palace to the two policemen that were stood there and said, these guys say they're waiting for you. And my nan and granddad were sat in a Vauxhall Astra with steamed windows. At that time, before it was pedestrianised, you could park outside Buckingham Palace waiting for me to jump in the back. And it always reminded me of the scene from Only Fools and Horses where they sat on Bond Street outside Sotheby's in the little van.
It. Are you a Liverpool fan?
I am.
Because you went to watch Tottenham, didn't you, when Gaz was playing?
Well, when I was a kid, John Barnes was my hero as a child. And but all my mates were Spurs fans.
Right.
So we used to go to White Hart Lane on a Saturday, stand on the terraces in those days. And, in those days, I was a football fan, and Paul Gascoigne was playing there at the time, Gary Lineker. Yeah, it was a great side.
And you talk about Gaza, and you talk about, Jimmy White's not in there, but I'm guessing he sort of could be in the book as well.
Well, all those sportsmen and sportswomen from that era, from the early 90s, they were national icons. Not necessarily because they won everything, we're saturated with such great sportsmen and women in this country now. But, we always liked someone who finished second in those days, I mean, we had plenty of Olympians that would get medals. We had a handful that would win gold, the likes of Linford Christie, Sally Gunnell, people like that. But we loved Colin Jackson and Roger Black and all these people, and they were national, they were celebrities. And so it was... sportsmen and women back then were really role models for kids growing up in them.
And because they were working class and they were vulnerable and they, pulled up by their own bootstraps, we identified with them. And you knew that that's how the British public connected with you, especially via Sports Personality of the Year and how many votes you got.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's kind of mixed feelings for me, that, because when I look back at that, I understand that the perception that I portrayed gave a false perception of me. But at the same time, it was so far removed from, when I look at it now, just as an observer, it was so far removed from what a sportsman should look and act and be like. I mean, 2 nights after Sports Personality of the Year, I was playing at the Hammersmith Apollo on stage with Paul Weller and his band, and came on to enormous cheers. Dressed like Paul Weller, I could have been a continuing member.
Did you share a tailor with him?
We did, yeah. Mark Powell in Soho.
All right.
Yeah, so it was kind of, and then I had an extensive guitar collection at that time. I had guitars from all these every different musician, Pete Townsend, Noel Gallagher, and so I was kind of like I was just.
You were all in again.
I was all in on anything that I was obsessed with, but I think that side of me, particularly the music side, it amplified more the more success I had on the bike, as a way of almost, aside from having access to that world, it was a distraction from. There was a lot of insecurity, and it was really entwined with a lot of imposter syndrome, and it's a complete contradiction.
Did you make a documentary about imposter syndrome?
I did, with the BBC. Yeah.
And what kind of? I mean, what narrative was that?
Along the same lines, I think anything I really achieved, there was always an element at the end of it that, am I worthy of this? I'm just that kid from Kilburn. The insecurities of me as a person. Sir Wiggo could walk through walls in many ways. Yeah. And execute Olympic finals and win Tour de France's. But the minute I stepped off the bike and had to be Bradley, it was always sort of. Kind of me being controversial, sitting on a throne in Hampton Court. Yeah, and just, being contentious for the sake of it at times, a bit sweary, moody. And I think there was an element of thinking, it was just, I was thrust back into being Bradley and that kid with self-worth issues and, and also, living a lie in many ways, because I knew what had happened to me and I was trying to bury that, and it emasculated me at childhood, and it's very, very complex. But I'm beginning to unpack all that now, in order that it doesn't hold me back for the rest of my life.
Unlayer the onion.
Yeah.
There's some great stories in it, like the meeting in the supermarket cafe with Chris Brailsford.
Dave Brailsford.
Sorry, Dave Brailsford. Yeah. So just tell us, first of all, set that up for us. And if you don't mind, can you explain to me, because I don't know, right? Can cyclists be transferred or bought like footballers can from one thing to another?
I mean, they can't per se, but unless there's technically it can happen.
You can compensate.
But what you're not allowed to do against the rules is start negotiations or talks with the rider before, I think it's the 1st of September or 1st of August.
So where was this calf then?
So this was at a supermarket, a cafe within a supermarket,
right,
halfway through the Tour de France in 2009. Now, obviously, there's nothing new in that. Riders start, commencing talks with teams all the time, from January even. So it's an unwritten rule, or it is a written rule. I'm not too sure, but it's certainly. People break it all the time. It's not that big a deal. But what it was the start of. Me going to Team Sky and leaving the team I was with at the time while I was lying fourth in the Tour de France, and coming to this superpower, which was, of course, Team Sky, which then dominated cycling for many years.
When you, I forgot, right, because I'm stupid. I forgot that you won the Tour de France, and was it 6 days later you were at the Olympics?
Yes. Yeah.
6 days later.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's that amazing passage in the book where you describe winning the Tour de France, then flopping down on the coach. On the bus with your kids, and then thinking and it did dawn on you then, it's never going to be the same.
There was a massive element of that, yes. It hit me in an instant at that time. Geez, I've just won the Tour de France, and I couldn't quite. It was the first time in the 3 weeks that I'd allowed myself to contemplate what I'd just achieved, and the sense of achievement, and also being such a fan of the sport and such a historian of the sport. Really understanding what it is I'd achieved. But that was, of course, mixed with feelings of, how have you won the Tour de France? And that's where the quote came from. Kids from Kilburn aren't supposed to win the Tour de France.
Yeah.
And it was a massive moment. Of course, we were straight on a flight back to London. We stayed in the Fox Hills Resort in Surrey, changed into our Great Britain tracksuits, and 5 nights later, I was ringing the bell at the opening ceremony.
Well, in between that, because the 2012 chapter starts with You know things are getting crazy when a helicopter lands in your back garden.
Yeah.
What was that?
So I went home for one night to see the kids after the Tour de France, and then I transferred down to Surrey via helicopter. Helicopter landed in the back garden, and I was whisked down to Surrey. I was in my bedroom an hour later.
And as if winning the Tour de France wasn't enough, 19 years after you'd been to see it with your mum, where you'd seen it, it was just the manifestation I was referring to.
Yeah. It was quite something. And not only that, to be in a team with, my brother in many ways, Mark Cavendish, the first British world champion at that time since Tommy Simpson, leading him out on the last stage in yellow, and not knowing really how to handle that event, so the minute I stepped off the bike, having done that lead out, I was thrust back into being Bradley, and not really knowing how to accept the applause, and accepting praise was a big thing for me as well. Not being able to, and so what transpired was this kind of, sort of comedic kind of, let's draw the raffle now, when I was supposed to address the dignitaries with the microphone. And so on and so forth. So it was, but look, there was a lot of joyful moments in there as well.
And as I say, it shines ever brighter.
I just realise now, one of the things of doing this book and writing this book is things like that. When I look back, I'm just not that person anymore. But I'm also not the person who's probably capable of winning a Tour de France today. I had to adopt, as I did, and created a monster in many ways from the age of 13 that was so obsessed with cycling, was nothing else but a cyclist, and so I'm a very different person now. So it's easy to look back and all the archive footage and things on YouTube and films and watch interviews of myself. I mean, another one comes to mind in 2012. I found myself a month and a half after the Tour de France getting GQ Man of the Year Lifetime Achievement Award, and Liam Gallagher's presenting it to me. And I'm dressed in like this dandy late 70s David Bowie suit.
You love Oasis as well.
David Bowie suit, not knowing what to say. And I watch this now, and it's just very, very, it's quite embarrassing watching it, really. But, again, it was, such a change from when I left for the Tour de France in 2012 to come.
Can you be happy for yourself now?
Absolutely.
Looking back at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
I think we're all guilty of that, Chris. I'm just very, I'm an overthinker anyway, and it's most of us will look back at certain times in our life and go, God, what was I thinking then?
Yeah.
And we're talking about 13 years ago now. And one of the things is you can prepare for failure as an athlete. You can pick yourself up, dust yourself off, work out where you went wrong, make changes, and try and chase the best in the world. But when you are the best in the world, and success follows, and you live in Lancashire and you got 2 kids and you don't live in Monaco and you're not sort of, protected from the world, and you become a bit of a celebrity in this country and you're invited to all sorts of manner of things. No, I hadn't anticipated that would happen off the back of winning the Tour de France and winning a home Olympic Games within the space of 10 days.
How close were you ever to being a snooker player?
Oh, not close at all. No. I always had these wild dreams as a child of what, I used to watch the World Snooker Championship every year. Every year, yeah. And so I used to love playing snooker. That playing snooker was gave me the same sort of escapism as cycling gave me.
Right.
Yeah.
Long time as well, because you tried rowing as well, didn't you?
When I stopped, yeah. Because again, I stopped cycling. I went on the Jump TV show.
I know.
And I remember standing one day at the top of the ski ramp when we were training for the event. I was stood with Spencer Matthews and Robbie Fowler. And I thought, what am I doing here? 6 months before that, I was stood on the gold medal rostrum in Rio at the Olympic Games. And I think that contemplating, what am I going to do for the rest of my life, really hit me hard there. And so we were there for 8 weeks, and I jumped on a rowing machine in the gym and started rowing every day. And I thought, I had this wild idea that maybe I could make the next Olympics in a rowing boat. And it was just, it's the only thing that made sense to me was being a professional athlete at that time. And it gave me a sense of identity when people said, well, what are you doing with yourself now? And I would say, I'm trying to go to the next Olympics, because the Olympics had been part of my life for 25 years. I'd been Olympic champion for 16 years at that point. And so it gave me some sort of sense of comfort saying, I want to go to the next Olympics. And
They say about rowing, the jury's out. Who are the fittest athletes in the world? It's either rowers or cyclists. Having done both, what would you say?
Well, I mean, I think they're on a par, but I have nothing but admiration for the rowers. The lifestyle they lead, the rewards are a lot less as well, financial rewards than cycling. But I would say that they are well up there in terms of some of the world's best athletes.
Tell us about Chris Froome.
Froome, yeah. I mean, me and Chris are on great terms now. I apologised to him a few years ago. I informed a lot of the fallout. What went on.
For people who don't know what happened.
Yeah, so me and Chris fell out massively during the Tour de France.
Well, you were in the two best riders in the world. Were in the best team.
Look, Chris surpasses me as a bike rider. I'm happy to say that. You know, I could live with him on my day in time trials and whatever. But Chris has gone on to be the best tour rider of our generation and is a phenomenal athlete, phenomenal person. And but again, that just shines a light on the person I was then and the way I handled relationships. And I was very flippant and very petulant. And it's it's again something that I've made amends for in my life.
Yeah. And you look forward to seeing him and saying,
yeah. I mean, he's just on the verge of retirement at the moment, but I always wish him well.
You talk very fondly about Sir Chris Hoy, and Chris has sent us a text.
I know, you just read it to me.
Morning, Chris. If you're listening on your boat, have the best time with your family. And you talked about London 2012, and you know there's a big deal going on when you are getting sort of crowded out by other athletes. Tell us about that. Tell us about that and Kobe Bryant and everything that's going on.
I mean, I saw that for myself when I was in Beijing at the Olympic Games. We were in the dining hall one day, and Kobe Bryant walked in, and he was, hundreds of athletes were around him trying to get a picture, which is you're supposed to be in a protected environment amongst your peers and amongst your athletes. But it was an incredible thing where one athlete transcended all the rules. But we had a smaller experience of that, me and Chris, certainly in London, in that I met Chris and a gentleman called Doug Daly, who was a bit of a legend in British cycling, for dinner in the village. I was going out to ring the bell. Chris was proudly carrying the flag of Great Britain that day. And we had dinner in the village together, and so we maybe had 15, 20 people going, "No, this is Chris and Brett," and it was quite a moment where again, I was used to that outside the village at that point, but inside the village, and I just for some reason I always remember Chris was stressing a little bit because he needed to find a razor because he was sponsored by Gillette and he had to be clean shaven before he walked around with a flag
because he could not be, and he hadn't got any with him.
So it's funny.
I didn't know Linda McCartney had a cycling team.
Yeah. Linda sponsored a professional cycling team in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I joined that team, my first professional team, and then sadly it ended because of the gentleman that was running it, and there was quite controversy around it. But
and you had your own team.
I did, yeah. I had a development team, and proudly, lots of great riders have come through it. Tom Pidcock being one of them. But again, that looking back now, when that started, other people run it. I would love that sort of team now and to be heavily involved with it. But that unfortunately came along in the years where I was using and really not present in any way. Yeah.
You say you'd love that now. Could you do that now? Possibly.
It's not up on the list of my priorities. At the moment, I'm really focused on what I am doing, and first and foremost, continuing my own recovery in many ways, and making sure I never slip back to old ways.
Well, this book goes a long way towards helping you do that. It's such a brave book.
Thank you, Chris.
It's such a brave book. Yeah. It's super open. It's super honest, and it's going to help a lot of people.
Thank you.
I hope you sell loads of it.
Yeah.
I hope you sell loads of copies. It's great to meet you.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, it was a pleasure, mate.
Thank you for fitting us in after the school run.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
It's the school run. We were saying, do you cycle to school?
No. I have to put it on my shoulders. He's 4, so I
all right, mate.
Do that.
Great. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Can we hear it for Sir Bradley Wiggins?
Thank
you very much indeed. Wow.
Thank you.